At 3 a.m., when the aisle is empty and the fluorescent lights hum like a warning, toilet paper becomes something strange. Not a household item, not a punchline, but a tiny white promise that civilization is still holding together. We've all seen what happens when that promise is threatened. Shelves get stripped bare in hours. People buy cases they never thought about twice. And suddenly, a product most of us barely notice has the emotional weight of food, water, and shelter. That reaction is not silly. It's ancient, it's human. Because toilet paper sits at the exact point where comfort, hygiene, industry, psychology, and panic all collide. It is soft enough to vanish in your hand, yet powerful enough to make people line up under cold store lights, whispering to each other like something terrible is coming. And the wild part is this: the story of toilet paper is not really about paper at all. It's about how a civilization learns to hide its most private needs in plain sight. Before toilet paper, there was nothing elegant about the problem. There were leaves, scraps of cloth, corn cobs, grass, straw, stones, water, snow, even the edge of a worn-out page if you were desperate enough. Every culture built its own answer around what it had, and every answer carried the same truth: the body does not care about pride. In the ancient world, people washed with water or reached for whatever sat nearby. In cold climates, rough materials bit the skin. In crowded cities, shared systems made sanitation both more necessary and more difficult. There was no universal standard because there was no universal comfort. The earth itself was the bathroom supply chain. Then paper began to spread, first as a precious material for writing, then as a disposable tool for more practical uses. Long before modern rolls appeared, some societies were already experimenting with paper in ways that would seem shocking to later generations. Soft paper became a private luxury, something used carefully and sparingly because paper was expensive, labor-intensive, and not yet something you burned through by the square. That mattered. A sheet of paper represented pulp, water, labor, drying time, transport, and the hidden cost of a whole system trying to turn trees or fiber into something a hand could tear in half a second. In that early period, the very idea of using paper for bodily cleanup hinted at a bigger shift. People were beginning to think of hygiene as something separate from clothing, laundry, and water. They were beginning to imagine disposal, not reuse, not repair, disposal. That was the first quiet revolution. Then industrialization changed everything. Mass paper production transformed paper from a scarce luxury into a cheap, everyday material. Factories roared, rollers spun. Pulp was cooked, pressed, dried, and cut with a precision that would have looked impossible to earlier generations. Paper no longer belonged only to letters, ledgers, and books. It started moving into kitchens, workshops, and restrooms. The modern bathroom needed a product that was clean, soft, cheap, and easy to store. It also needed one that could be sold in enormous volume. Toilet paper fit that role almost too well, but the road there was messy. Early products were rough, treated, and sometimes sold in awkward sheets or flat packages. Some were advertised with a kind of embarrassed politeness, as if the sellers themselves were afraid to say exactly what they were for. That embarrassment says a lot. A product can be technically useful and socially invisible at the same time. Toilet paper had to cross that gap. It had to enter the home without sounding indecent. It had to become normal before people were comfortable talking about it. So manufacturers refined it. They made it softer. They made it stronger. They experimented with perforation so you could tear a precise amount without ripping the whole roll apart like an animal. They improved embossing, ply count, texture, and roll shape. Each tiny change sounds trivial until you realize what it did. It turned a basic paper product into a machine-made experience of reassurance. When you pull a sheet and it separates cleanly, that is engineering. When it feels gentle instead of abrasive, that is chemistry, fiber selection, and manufacturing control. When it dissolves at the right speed in plumbing, that is a design decision with real consequences. Toilet paper had to satisfy two enemies at once: the human body and the sewer system. Too weak and it falls apart in your hand. Too strong and it causes a plumbing nightmare. Too rough and it hurts. Too soft and it may waste material or sacrifice performance. That balance is the hidden art. And for decades, companies competed not with grand slogans but with microscopic improvements. Better pulp, cleaner bleaching, tighter winding, improved embossing patterns, gentler additives, and packaging that could survive damp bathrooms and crowded store shelves. This is where toilet paper stops being a commodity and becomes a quiet feat of industrial design. Let's tear down the blueprint of that feat. Most toilet paper begins as fiber, often from wood pulp, recycled paper, or a blend of both. If the source is virgin fiber, logs are broken down into chips, then cooked in chemical baths that separate cellulose from lignin and other components. The result is a slurry, wet and raw, more like beige soup than anything you'd want near your skin. If the source is recycled, old paper is pulped, cleaned, de-inked, filtered, and refined. Either way, the goal is the same: create long enough fibers to hold together but not so dense that the final sheet feels like cardboard. Water plays a massive role, so does refining. The fibers are beaten and dispersed in ways that control softness, absorbency, and strength. Then the slurry hits a moving wire screen where water drains away and the web of fibers begins to exist as paper for the first time. It is fragile in that moment. A breath could seem to undo it. Then presses squeeze out more moisture, heated cylinders dry the sheet, and calendaring smooths the surface. If the product is meant to be especially soft, manufacturers may go for multiple plies, tissue creping, air pockets, or surface treatments that make the sheet feel bulkier without adding much weight. That illusion matters. The customer wants volume. They want the sensation of abundance in a small, neat cylinder on a cardboard core. They want the roll to look like it will last longer than it actually will. And the industry knows this. So the sheet pattern, the roll diameter, the core size, the package graphics, even the way the paper crackles when it unspools, all of it is part of the sale. A roll doesn't just clean, it reassures. That reassurance became even more important as indoor plumbing spread. Once toilets entered homes at scale, the problem changed from finding a method to finding a product compatible with pipes. Water closets, sewer lines, septic systems, municipal treatment plants, and home plumbing created a new ecosystem. Toilet paper had to disappear fast enough after use so the system could carry it away. That requirement created a subtle partnership between the bathroom and the paper mill. You are not just buying paper, you are buying something engineered for brief existence. There is a kind of elegance in that. A product designed to serve one of the most private moments in life and then vanish. If you're obsessed with the hidden engineering behind the things we take for granted, hit that subscribe button because we unearth the quiet systems that keep modern life functioning every week. Now back to the machine. As toilet paper became more common, it also became a mirror for social change. In the home, it represented cleanliness and modernity. In public spaces, it represented trust. In schools, offices, trains, hospitals, and restaurants, its presence signaled that a place expected human beings to remain human there. This sounds obvious until we imagine the opposite. A restroom with no paper is not just inconvenient, it is a small breach in the social contract. It says the building is not prepared for the body it invited in. That is why shortages feel so personal. They are not really about tissue. They are about the fear that civilization is thinner than we thought. And that fear surfaced in dramatic ways during moments of stress. When people worry about supply chains, they don't stock up on everything equally. They rush toward items that combine necessity with psychological control. Toilet paper is one of the strongest examples. It is bulky, visible, and easy to count. You can see your reserve shrinking. You can imagine the future with or without it. A pack of rice does not trigger the same ritual. A bottle of water may fade from attention. But toilet paper sits in the bathroom like a silent meter ticking down. The visual bulk produces emotional urgency. The mind treats scarcity like threat, even when the threat is only symbolic. That is why panic buying spreads so fast. One full cart inspires another. One emptied shelf invites a second person to grab too much. Suddenly, a normal supply pattern becomes a stampede powered by imitation and fear. And because toilet paper is heavy, awkward, and cheap enough to buy in large quantities, it becomes the perfect object for hoarding. This is where the hidden reality sharpens. Toilet paper is not only made in factories, it is managed by an entire logistics machine that most people never see. Mills run on scheduled output. Warehouses hold inventory. Trucks move wrapped bales from plant to distribution center to store. Retailers forecast demand by season, region, and historical use. Restrooms in commercial buildings need constant replenishment. Every level depends on the one below it operating without drama, and the drama is usually invisible, until it is. A storm, a strike, a transport delay, a surge in demand, a production slowdown, or even a shift in consumer behavior can ripple outward. Shelves that looked full on Monday can look stripped by Wednesday. The product is so common that people forget it exists as a fragile logistical miracle. Yet every roll on a supermarket shelf has already traveled through a chain of water use, energy use, packaging, labor, trucking, storage, and retail markup. The roll in your hand is the end of a long, dirty, expensive journey. There is also a hidden environmental story here, and it is more complicated than a simple headline. Manufacturing toilet paper from virgin fiber means cutting trees, pulping them, bleaching them, drying them, and shipping the result. Recycled fiber reduces some pressure but brings its own challenges: sorting, contamination, de-inking, fiber wear, and quality control. Softness and sustainability often pull in opposite directions. Better absorbency may require more processing. Stronger rolls may require more fiber. Lower impact production can mean compromises in feel, price, or availability. So the industry keeps balancing on a narrow edge between convenience and cost, between consumer desire and environmental reality. That tension lives inside the bathroom cabinet, though nobody says it out loud. And yet toilet paper keeps adapting. Recycled content, reduced packaging, efficient roll cores, improved pulping methods, and water-saving manufacturing techniques all point to a product that has to survive not just customer expectations, but modern scrutiny. Even the smallest details matter. The cardboard tube may look insignificant, but it influences winding tension, transport efficiency, shelf appearance, and the amount of usable tissue per package. The embossing pattern affects softness and absorption. The number of sheets per roll changes consumer perception of value. The wrapper film influences shelf life, moisture resistance, and waste. Nothing about toilet paper is accidental once you start examining it closely. It is an object built from 100 tiny decisions, each one invisible until the final moment of use. That may be the perfect symbol for modern life. Most of our comfort comes from systems we never inspect. We buy, store, tier, use, flush, and forget. The object disappears, but the infrastructure remains. Sewers move beneath us like buried veins. Treatment plants filter what we send away. Water cycles through pipes, chambers, screens, and tanks. All of it is designed to erase the evidence of the body with minimal friction. Toilet paper is the soft edge of a very hard system. Its legacy is huge because its design is humble. It democratized comfort. It turned a private necessity into an ordinary expectation. It helped define what a modern bathroom should offer. It became so normal that we only notice it when it's gone. And maybe that is why it fascinates us. Because toilet paper teaches a lesson about civilization that we rarely admit, progress is not always majestic. Sometimes it arrives as something white, perforated, and quietly dependable. Sometimes the biggest inventions are the ones that make embarrassment disappear. Sometimes the future is just a roll on a spindle. So the next time we reach for one of those soft little spirals, we should remember what it really represents. Not just hygiene, not just convenience. A whole system of labor, chemistry, engineering, supply chains, and social trust compressed into a shape we can hold in one hand. That is the kind of story we live for here, the objects hiding entire worlds inside them. If that kind of curiosity is what brought you here, stay with us. Subscribe because every week we pull back the curtain on the ordinary things that secretly built the modern world, and once you learn to see them, you never look at reality the same way again.